The following video was sponsored by the Greek American Heritage Society of Philadelphia, preserving and promoting our community's history.
Our guest today has a musical career that spans nearly 50 years. You've probably seen him at a local Greek festival, a church dance, or maybe even at your local Greek restaurant. He's played with many bands, including the Panegyri. He has performed at Carnegie Hall, the Lincoln Center, the Penn Museum of Anthropology and Archaeology, the Philadelphia Art Museum, and in many places around the country. The list of credits is endless. He began his musical journey in Athens, Greece in 1970, where his then girlfriend and now wife, Georgia, brought him to see the virtuoso Santouri master Aristides Moschos, rehearsing with a small band from the Lykeion Greek performing dance troupe. After returning to the United States, he was one of only a handful of musicians that played and performed on the Greek Santouri. Today, the number of players around the country who have roots to this musical instrument and this musician may approach 24. I am proud and honored to introduce John Rousos. John, welcome to Cosmos Philly.
Thank you so much. It's nice to have you here.
Well, John, give us another sample first of the music.
Well, I just want to say that this instrument is chromatic, meaning that that it's got all the half tones of the Western scale. And it's got a beautiful tone. That's why I fell in love with it and decided to play it.
Exactly how long have you been playing this instrument?
I started trying to learn about 1971, about a year after I brought my first Santouri, which I'll show you later, back from Greece.
And the instrument, what does it do for you? What's the inspiration for it? Yeah, why do you love to play it?
Primarily because of the sound that I hear. But also I love to play it with other musicians. It's really fun to play. It's very fun to play, but I like the sound that comes back to me. Yeah, whether you're hitting it with sticks or plucking, it's sort of a magical sound.
Is there a big difference between the two sounds, the plucking versus the...
Well, you can hear, and it really depends on how hard you're playing. But you hear how the sound carries. It's really very rewarding if you're how can I say it, audio oriented, which I am.
What should people know about this instrument that they probably don't? What makes it special?
This instrument was used, let's say towards the end of the last century and the beginning of this century, was used in small groups, small ziyas, that would play in the village square. They didn't have amplifiers and everything. They're playing just instruments. And this was part of an island group, for example, that was used like in the islands of Andros, Mytilene, those islands, and others, that would be part of a zia that had a violin, lauto, apparetito to lauto, and a Santouri, and one of those people, or another one, would sing. So they've got a sweet little group of acoustic instruments that don't need any amplification, that play together beautifully. So this guy is playing the percussion. He can play accompaniment, or he can play melody as well. So, sometimes if you don't have a lauto player, the Santouri player can accompany the violinist. It also appeared in groups like mainland groups, like Epirot groups that would use a Santouri, or Cimbalo, this is a Cimbalo back here, in their group led by a clarinet.
The instrument today, has it grown in popularity? Has it been quiet? Because everyone knows the bouzouki, but this particular instrument has a history, and we haven't heard too much about it, but you might hear it in the background today at a restaurant or at a festival, maybe. What is the current status of the instrument?
The current status is not great because it's very hard to amplify this instrument, and Greek dancers and musicians like to play very loud music, and so its place has gotten a little lost, except in folk dancing situations where they don't want extremely loud music, they just want, authentic music, then they like the Santouri.
Talk about some of the...
For example, I was going to say, for example, the ethnic arts in New York used to promote the Periklis Halkias family. Okay? The Periklis Halkias family used clarinet, Periklis Halkias. Petro Lukas Halkias, one of Periklis' sons, who's very famous in Greece now, played clarinet sometimes with us, with the group, and also his brother, Achilles, who died recently, in the past couple of years. Wonderful violinist. And anyway, ethnic arts, Marty Koenig and Ethel Rehm promoted this family and did festivals, and they hired me as the Santouri player, and so I was lucky enough to play with them probably a couple of dozen times up in New York, in the New York area, Bohemian Hall in Astoria, etc., places like that.
Are there many Greek musicians still today that are, well, let's talk about the popular ones. Who are the well-known Santouri players today? Are they all in Greece? Are they here? Or?
The most well-known ones were Aristides Moschos and Tassos Diakogiorgis, but now there's a number of young Santouri players that studied with these masters, with both Aristides and Diakogiorgis, and an example is Aretik Etime. There's Marios Papadeas. There's, well, I can't remember the names offhand, but there's a nice young player that's in a trio of Santouri, Lauto, and excellent violi with a singer. There are some very nice groups in Greece that are playing with a Santouri.
Has this instrument expanded its distinction into other countries, or is there a variation of this instrument?
Well, yes, there's variations. For example, in this country, there's the hammered dulcimer. In Hungary and Romania, there's what's known as the cymbalum. This big instrument here underneath all this stuff is a cymbalum. That's tuned differently. This is tuned chromatically, meaning C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, etc., going chromatically up with a bass lower on the right. So you've got C or Do, Do diez si, Re diez si, Mi, E, Fa, F, Fa diez si, F sharp, so forth. Sol, Sol diez si, La, La diez si, Si. Whereas the cymbalum tuning behind me here, for example, is different than that. It goes up, let me get some sticks here. It goes up diatonically, and the bass notes are laid out differently. Here, and to cut a long story short, this instrument is played in Romanian, in Hungarian, in Ukrainian. All those countries there use this instrument a lot. and there's a lot of people. It's to them, this bouzouki is, this instrument is flashy, like the bouzouki. They're such virtuosos. There's one over there, Tony Yordaki. He's dead now, but he's a fantastic virtuoso. You hear him play, he's amazing.
This passion and love of this musical instrument, are there places today we can still see it around the Delaware Valley being played?
You would have been able to see me playing at the Estia restaurant in Philadelphia. I was there 12 years.
We all knew that. We all knew that too. That was quite a run.
That was a long run. That's the longest. That's one of the longest jobs. Actually, my engineering job was longer. That went from 1980 to 2002. I had an engineering job.
Let's talk about the places and the people you knew along the way around here, or maybe outside of the area. That you played in a lot of places around the Delaware. Everybody knew you one way or another. They knew of your name. They knew that you played this very select instrument.
Unusual instrument, yeah.
So tell us about a few of the places you played locally.
Okay, like the first venue I really had was with the playing for the Terpsichorean Dance Performing Group. I was asked by Dr. Nick Metalianos, that used to perform in the Rousos with his wife. And anyway, at some point he decided he was going to put a dance group together, because he could teach dancing, and he did that. But he saw me playing for the first time. I was playing Santouri in public. I didn't know how to play. I just knew how to play a couple of songs, and I took it because I was playing guitar at the Middle East restaurant on Second and Chestnut, I think it was. And there, lo and behold, I'm playing my one or two songs, and Dr. Metalianos hears me. It was a little balcony between the first and second floors that the musicians were playing. And Metalianos heard me, and he called me over later, and he said, I want you to play music for my dance group. And I said, okay, but I don't know anything, and I don't have any people to play with. He said, that's all right. I'll make a tape of the music, you learn it, you find your friends, and you make a group. So I did that.
And that was in 70?
That was in 1971, let's say. So what I did is I got friends that I used to play with a little bit, and we practiced all these songs that Dr. Metalianos wanted us to learn. I created this little group called Panigiri, which included Bill Lagakos. I don't know if you know that name.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Cigar.
Bill Lagakos with his cigars and his violin. He was the violin player of the group. So it included him and about 3 or 4 other people. And what happened is that we learned a lot, all of us. And 2 of my friends and I went into Little Onassis on 17th Street that Tom Canidaris had with a partner, and we played some songs there. We had our instruments with us. We had just finished playing someplace else. And Tom said, I really want you to play Santouri here. And so he hired me on the spot. And that was the first place that I played Santouri in a little restaurant, in a little public place.
Is that what it was? Little Onassis on, you said 17th and?
It was on 17th Street.
17th, and it was a little restaurant of sorts?
It was a little hole in the wall with, with food showing in the window in the front.
Okay. And
places, maybe you could sit about 50 people at the most, provided they're on top of each other almost. And it used to get packed up. I'd start at 6:30 or something, and I wouldn't leave till about 2:30 or 3 in the morning. I was young, and I wanted to play. And people would come, the food was inexpensive, it would fill up, and there would be a little 10 square feet in front of us that people would be dancing. And a lot of dancing, Zebekikos, anything. I played also bouzouki a little bit,
Well, tell us, how many instruments do you actually know and play?
Santouri and bouzouki. Other things I just play at them a little bit, not much.
And there seems to be, down here, we're in a workshop, if anyone's noticed, inside John's house. Tell us about this facility, especially what they're not seeing over here in the background. It looks like you make something back here.
Well, I had my my antique Lykeion Santouri. That's what I brought back from Greece in 1970, along with my bouzouki, and on the Orient Express on the train, carrying these two things. Anyway, eventually I started learning it, and I told you the story. But it was warped, and I knew that it might not survive. So I wanted to. There was no place to buy instruments here, and I wasn't going to Greece for many years. So I should add that I had been an engineer. I had worked at DuPont for a couple of years before I stopped, went to Greece, brought back instruments, and started working as a musician.
Well, before we even go any further, we have to talk about your family a little bit.
Okay.
You were born and raised in basically two countries, for the most part, probably over here.
I was raised in my grandparents' house in Washington, D.C. I moved in with my parents at 6, and we went to Greece at 8. So now I'm in Greece, going to an English school. My dad worked for the CIA, to cut a long story short, and therefore he was assigned back and forth. We were in Greece for 2 years, from when I was 8 to 10. He came back to Langley, and we lived in Washington in my grandparents' house again when I was 10, from 10 to 11. 11, we were back in Greece. We lived in Glyfada, and then Ano Kifisia. And I was going to a school, before I went to a school in Philothea, now I was going to a school in Kifisia. After a year there, we came back to the States, except now this time to New York. So I was in New York, in Long Island for 2 years, 7th and 8th grade. I go by grades because that's what I can remember. Then after that, we went back to the Washington area, and they bought a little house. So I was in Wheaton for a year and a half, and he's in Langley again. Then after that, in the middle of 10th grade, we went back to Greece.
Wow.
Okay, so in the middle of 10th grade, I'm back in Greece, and I finished 11th and 12th grade in Greece. So that was a 2.5 years run.
Was that difficult for you going back and forth? Did you have mixed feelings?
I would lose my friends. I had some good friends in New York. When we moved to Wheaton, it was a new neighborhood that was empty. It was devoid of people my age, let's say. So after about a year and a half, I started making a few friends about 2 miles away, but then we moved. So yes, to answer your question, it was difficult.
Do you feel an empty kind of kinship or relationship with Greece not being there, or going back and forth? Do you feel like there's a void that you should be back there instead of here? Is there something like that?
It's difficult to come up with the correct question, what to ask.
Right.
I lost my grandfather when I was 8. I loved my grandparents very much, both Yaya Eleni and Papu Yanni. So I knew that from now on she was going to be a sad woman, but she made the best of it. She's a wonderful woman. But anyway, cut a long story short, again, I have a lot of long stories, but I can get bogged down in, when you were going back and forth, when did you realize, because we know 70 was right around the 70, 72 time frame, that was a definitive time in your life. How old for you, and why? I finished high school in Greece in 59.
Oh. Okay.
Now, during the previous, those years before 59, those 2.5 years, I did hear a lot of Greek bouzouki music. So I began having a feel and an interest in bouzouki music. Mm-hmm. But, in those days, my friends and I were into American rock and roll. Elvis Presley was my hero, and a few others. Fats Domino, Little Richard, those kind of people. That was my music. Mm-hmm. Not Greek music. Mm-hmm. But I had heard Demotika when I was a young kid in my grandparents' home. All I heard was Lauto, Clarino, and wonderful singing. Kleftika, Tsamika, Kalamadiana, all that kind of stuff. That was my imprint when I was a kid. And then later in high school in Greece, I got imprinted a little bit with bouzouki music. So in college, what did I do? Eventually, in college, I made friends with Greek students. Why? because I missed Greek. I missed Greek, the Greek world. So I'm at University of Maryland, and all of a sudden my best friends, not all of a sudden, after a while, best friends are Dimitri Monos, he's dead now, Yiannis Roussos, who's also dead. These were really great friends. And I had some other Greek American friends, and we'd have a party every Friday night. And I had my dad on one of the trips back from Greece brought me a bouzouki. So I had a bouzouki, and I would play in these parties a little bit, whatever I could play, you know. But we'd have fun. That was the whole point. So we all had fun, and that was with me now. So I finished chemical engineering, but I had this music with me now. Not that I was proficient in anything, but I loved the music.
Before we move forward, I'm curious about your family roots, where they're from exactly in Greece and what you've been able to trace, if you have.
Yeah. My two grandmothers who were sisters were from Soustiani, which is a village up Taiatos, pretty far up on Taiatos, behind Sparta. So they were both, and they were both, their family name was Tsakonas. So it was Eleni and Zaharo Tsakonas, and I have pictures of both of them there. My mother's father, Christos Athanasopoulos, was also from that village. And he came back from the Balkan Wars. After they finished, he walked back home up to the village with the idea that he would marry one of the Tsakonas girls. And he did. He married Zaharo, who was the oldest. So the family gave him Zaharo. Eleni got married later to Papou Yanni, whom she met in Washington, D.C., because Papou Yanni had a brother in Washington and was in the restaurant business, and the two became partners, and they did very well. And when they sold the business, Papou Yanni had already met Eleni, and they already had my dad and my aunt, Bessie, Vasiliki and Thodoros, and they were like 1 and 2, and the family picked up and moved back to Greece. So my dad was raised in Greece, but he was an American citizen. Wow. And where did they get raised? My Papou Yanni, who had money with him, bought a hotel or created a hotel. I don't know if he built it or bought it in Ammonia Square. Probably called the Astor. I wouldn't be surprised, because later, when he created another restaurant after the Germans invaded and he came back to the States, eventually he built the Astor restaurant in Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So there's a history that's...
Yeah, which my Aunt Bessie ran after he died. Okay. So my dad didn't want to be in the restaurant business at all. He was in the Army during the Second World War, and he did well. He was a brave young man, and he had a wonderful Greek education in high school, which gives you an advantage in languages. And right away they plucked him and put him in secret operations, in special operations, Secret Service. So before the CIA was created, he was already inducted into it. No kidding. He got out of the war. He went to Georgetown and finished Georgetown 3 years. Got 4 semesters of credits in French simply from his high school French. And so he finished in 3 years, and they sent him to Greece. That's when he finished. I had moved in with him when he was finishing college, and we were living in Virginia, and he was going to Georgetown University.
So what brought you to Philadelphia and when?
Okay. I graduated, I came to Philadelphia in 1969 because I had just finished a semester of graduate school in math. I'm trying to remember now. No, I had gone back to school to study astronomy, and I had just finished working at Glidden Pigments, which I did for 2 years. My first engineering job after graduating chemical engineering. And anyway, I was at the point, I had quit Glidden to go to Ohio to study math. I got accepted in graduate school in mathematics, so I studied math for a semester, did well, but I couldn't decide. I didn't want to become a teacher or a professor or anything, so I really couldn't decide what to do. I came back to my friends. I was living with my friends in near University of Maryland, my Greek friends. We had bought a house at that point and were renting rooms, and anyway, so I was with them, and one of the friends had somebody, a relative here in Philadelphia, who worked at who was a manager at Marshall Laboratory. So I got a job as a chemist in Marshall Laboratory due to this friend's relative that was willing to hire me, even though I had a shaky background. And anyway, so I was there for 2 years, and almost 2 years.
Well, someone came into your life right in that time frame, it sounds like, too.
Yes.
Very influential.
Yes. My girlfriend, Georgia, at the time. I met her after a couple of months of being in the Philadelphia area. I chose Philadelphia instead of being a sole engineer in some boondocky place in Michigan. I decided to accept the job in DuPont instead of that other job, so that I could meet people. And of course, I met somebody, but she was older than me, and she was afraid of getting involved with a Greek, and so forth and so on. And so even though it was a very passionate relationship, she was happy that I was going to go to Greece. So I left and I went to Greece. But we missed each other so much that about a month or two later, she followed me.
Oh, wow.
And there you have it.
The rest is history.
There you have it, yeah. But she was a big influence because she was a folk dancer in many nationalities dancing, including Greek. And she had been to Greece before and befriended a lot of the Greek dancers in Lykeion. So she had girlfriends in Lykeion, and that's how she took me why she took me to Lykeion, because she was already familiar with it, and she knew that there was a nice music group. They were just playing acoustically. Beautiful. Clarinet, violin, Santouri, Lauto, and the Santouri player was Aristides Moschos. And they're playing this beautiful music for the dancer. They're practicing for the performance of this #1 performing group in Greece.
Was it a moment that really hit you, or some epiphany that took place?
It electrified me to see Aristides Moschos. Just the beauty of the instrument, but not only that, his virtuosity was just outstanding. Yeah.
So let's talk about the music today. Has it evolved? Has it changed? Is it being played in other areas more, is it more popular in different parts of Greece or the United States or anywhere else?
Well, okay. Some of my students are involved in groups. There's Lisa Lippman, who's one of the best students, and she studied with some other teachers as well. She's part of a group called Zia that have produced CDs, and they're in the West Coast area. And so they play at various performances, dances, venues, and so forth. There's another small group called Karpouzi in the Washington area, with one of my students playing Santouri. Both of these women are playing Santouris that I made as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm sort of proud of that.
What about back in Greece? Is the music evolved at all there?
In Greece, Santouri is still being played, and it's played by young people that have studied with either Diakogiorgis or with Aristides. And they're good players, and they play with good musicians. Nikos Ikonomidis is the leader of the group with Panos Vergos is his name, it just came to me, who plays Santouri with Nikos Ikonomidis, and they have a wonderful Lauto player and a wonderful singer, Kyriaki, and I can't, Spano, I think, I can't remember her last name. Very wonderful island group, okay, island music.
Is it different than
mainland?
On the mainland?
Okay, yeah, this is all different, very different music. That's the richness of Greek music, is that it's totally, I mean, if you hear Pontian music, has nothing to do with Epirot music, or even Macedonian music, or or various island music. Even the various island musics are different from one another. Cretan music is very different than Kykladico music, let's say, Andriotico music.
Are you still as passionate about it now, today, as?
I love the instrument. That was, okay, let me say this, let me back up. In college, my friends and I liked bouzouki music, but I kept on hearing cymbalum gypsy music, and I loved that sound. And that predisposed me, so when I heard Aristides able to do it, Aristides could play some of the Romanian gypsy stuff.
Maybe you should sample a little bit to hear what that's like.
Well I mean...
Is it different? Is it?
It's not, it's, how can I say it? If you hear it the way it should be heard, it's different than Greek island music, let's say. It's very different. I'm just trying to say now that I was in love with both things, and therefore I like the bouzouki and I like the Santouri. I related the Santouri to cymbalum, but not exactly. I chose the Greek version of the instrument, and I like just the Greek music, you know. So it lends itself to the Greek music.
I'd love to hear one of your pieces, something that you really love to play. Is there a particular piece you love to play?
There's a lot of things that I love to play.
Tell us.
Yeah, for example, I like some repetico on the Santouri. Not many Santouri players like that.
Well, let's have a little sample.
Θα τραγουδήσω στο πιο ψηλότερο βουνό. I don't want to play the whole thing because it's so long. Yeah, you know.
It's great stuff. That's great stuff.
But you can see that it's fun.
Yeah. So when do we get to see you play next? Are you still out there in the performing world? Do you get
No, I'm not performing right now, but I actually got together with a bunch of friends, Jim Nikoloudis and Elias, and I can't remember his last name, and a bunch of others got together at the Ikariotico Clubhouse here in South Jersey, in Pennsauken. And we had a great time all playing together. I had actually run into them at the Greek Agora here at St. Thomas, and we played together a little bit. But I was playing bouzouki. I hadn't brought my Santouri. And there's a nice violin player, Vasily, and I don't know his last name, was playing very sweet, some very sweet island stuff. So I don't know. I'm having fun. I'm not anxious. I don't need to be playing all the time in restaurants. It was a good way to make for some retirement activity.
Have you done any recording at all?
I've been on other people's recordings. I haven't created my own. No.
But you still love it. It's still something you do. You know, with a social, do you prefer performing on a more social basis or more on a performance basis for the public?
I've done some concerts with a man who's in that picture there playing laudo, named Alan Zemmel, who's very young there. Now he's about 5 years younger than me, so he's quite a bit older. So we did some concerts in the Baltimore area. With a lot of people came. Is there a particular memorable performance that you can share with us? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I did them, and I understood that it's too stressful for me. I don't like it. Okay, so I don't like to perform in concerts. I do like to play with friends. You know, if I've got a good clarinet and a good laudo. For example, where is the picture? Oh, the picture's up on the door. I'm playing with Alan Zemmel on laudo and George Stathos on clarinet at the Johnstown Folk Festival. And we played at about 4 or 5 different stages. That's not like a concert. That's just playing, in a festival. They give you a drink or two, you're warmed up a little bit, that's good.
Well, how do you warm up? Is that what it is, a drink or two?
I usually warm up with a drink or two when I'm playing either bouzouki, not so much with the Santouri. In Santouri I try not to drink very much, because this is harder. It's a difficult
much
instrument.
harder?
It's considerably harder. When you warm up on the Santouri, on the bouzouki, I mean, I have to warm up on the bouzouki too. When I start, I'm xeros. But after a while, I loosen up, and I can play more. And it's fun. Both are fun. Yeah, I probably like to drink when I play. I might as well admit that.
That's okay. It helps you loosen up.
Yeah, it helps me loosen up. And when I drink a little bit, I know that I'm having fun. Sometimes, if I don't drink, I don't know that I'm having fun. It's stupid.
Well, John Roussos, thank you for talking with us. Could you take us out with another song? Could you close this interview out with a song that you'd play for us out? Something in full, something that you really love?
I love a lot of things. So I don't know that.
Well, tell us what you're going to play first.
I'll try to play because I'm xeros here. I'm doing so much talking, it makes me nervous. That's Aristides.
Wonderful. Thank you again for talking with us.
Thank you.
It's a real pleasure.
Thank you for talking with me.
For more information about sponsoring or viewing the interview series, visit the Greek American Heritage Society of Philadelphia online at gahsp.org.